Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Jess Lenore here in Baltimore, and we have some breaking news for you. The city of Baltimore faced by an ultimatum from activists, a Be More block, of tearing down. They said they were going to tear down the statue of Robert E. Lee, which is here at Wyman Park tonight, Wednesday, if the city had not taken it down. In the middle of the night, something like 4 or 5 in the morning, the city came in, and as you can see, they took down the statue of Robert E. Lee, which has been here since the 1920s. It was really an homage to white supremacy, to racism, the lost cause. The statue was built at a time when Baltimore had the nation's first racial segregation zoning law, which still has a huge impact on the city today. The city council had unanimously voted to take down these statues immediately on Monday. And now I'm here with somebody to talk about this a little more. Can you introduce yourself and tell us why you're here?
Hi, I'm Ryan Flanagan. I'm a lifelong Baltimorean and someone who's always lived within, close proximity to these statues, and I just couldn't say clearly enough how pleased I am that we saw like a grassroots movement really bring this issue to the fore and make it inescapable for our politicians and our leadership. And now, even though it's just a symbol, I think we've seen in Charlottesville that symbols matter symbols matter, and now these are done. We have other things that are pressing that we need to work on, but today's a good day.
So I'm going to just show everyone what the statue used to be, and it's gone. It is gone, and you can see activists put up this statue, which was removed at least a couple times yesterday, of a black woman in its place. You can see that. I'm a journalist. Oh, you're a journalist. But I'll tell you my thoughts. Probably.
Do not use my face.
Oh, okay. This one has the woman camera. Alright, so.
Seriously, stop. I don't care.
So this became a This has been a flashpoint for years. There's been protests for years at this site. We've covered it at the Real News. And on Sunday, after the killing in Charlottesville, thousands of people gathered here and demand that this and other vestiges of white supremacy be taken down. I'm gonna talk to a witness. Talk to you for a second. Okay, so can you introduce yourself and tell us your name?
Hi, yes, I'm James MacArthur, and I'm a Baltimore resident. Hey, look who's here.
You speak up a little bit?
Yes, we're going to speak up for vocal clarity.
Okay. And so you were here last night.
I was here last night.
Describe what you saw.
What we saw was very interesting. When I first got here, there was a small crowd gathered. There were no TV cameras yet, and it's minimal police presence. And I want to note that because Baltimore makes the news for a lot of negative things. This statue removal was not done by an angry mob. The police were just here to block the streets for traffic, but they didn't have to hold people back or anything like that. And that part of the story is rarely told when it happens in Baltimore. People only hear about all the negative, bad stuff. So anyways, the police were just standing around, very relaxed posture, and keeping traffic away because they had heavy equipment in there. The cranes were here, the flatbed trucks, and everything like that. And it was very tricky because you got the overhead, the light fixtures, the traffic lights, the trees, and everything. Everyone commented how skillful the crane operator was.
Carefully, I read.
Carefully. They got the guys climbed up on the horses with ladders, and they were literally sitting on it like you're riding a horse to attach the yoke and everything like that. The crane maneuvered into position, and first they tested it, so it was lifted off just an inch or two. They made sure everything was balanced and short. I mean, they went through great pains to make sure this was properly moved and replaced on the truck bed, not just like toppled over.
And can you talk about the timing? Because the mayor had initially said, we need to wait, we need to get the right approvals.
I talked to the mayor on Monday and asked for a timeline, and she said, we don't have one yet. And then she mentioned all these steps that had to be gone through in order to do it. But it is kind of funny to show that when they need to get things done quickly, they can.
And it was a large part because the group Be More Block had given the city an ultimatum and said, if it wasn't taken down by tonight, by Wednesday night, they were going to take it down. Yeah.
And that was one of several voices that said, if they don't do it, we will. That came from several corners. That was one of the more prominent ones. But there were several different quarters saying, hey, we're going to take this down, whether you want it down now or not.
And force the city's hand, it seems.
Force the city's hand. These contractors got their act together quite quickly.
And this is just one of at
One
least
of four.
Yeah.
One of four that were identified to be removed. I do believe this was the largest, most imposing one.
Yeah. And it's been a flashpoint for years. It's been protests here for years.
Yeah. Not only protests, they come here on, was it Lee's birthday, I think, and they have the little ceremony?
Well, the KKK protest was a counter protest as well. Yeah.
And that was part of what the mayor cited. Like, she doesn't want this here to be this flashpoint where people come and make it a focal point for their little thing, you know.
And do you think this represents just history, or do you think it represents...
This doesn't represent history at all. You can ask 100 people what they learned from the statue.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I've lectured on history. You learn history from books and from things. A statue that's meant to glorify doesn't really teach anything. Whatever it does teach, it's a wrong message when you put anyone up on a pedestal. I mean, even a quote-unquote good guy, you know what I mean? That doesn't tell you the story and doesn't tell you his flaws. And you certainly never learn the flaws of these two generals as they're sitting proudly astride their horses in Maryland, which never joined the Confederacy. So what were you teaching there? Here you have these proud Confederate generals in the state of Maryland.
It had to be occupied by federal forces to keep it from...
Well, yeah, we know that, but historically it did not join. Mm-hmm. We know the background to it. It would have. The hand had to be forced, but it didn't. But so, like, the Confederates were not able to be victorious here, but that statue made it look like they were.
And it was built at a time when Baltimore had the first racial segregation law.
We came up with the redlining here. We came up with the housing segregation. And then here is this guy, I forgot his name, in 1948, he had such a fetish with the Confederates that, you know, he commissioned building this thing. It wasn't out of a love for history. It was out of a love for a bygone era and all that it represented. I mean, that's very clear with the timing of it. This wasn't done as, hey, let's remember these brave men who fought or something like that. It was like, look at these guys. They're my heroes because of what they stood for.
And segregation and these issues that existed a century ago are still...
Well, Baltimore, that's still a big problem here. And here we are, a city with a population is made up of majority black people. And, you know, we're honoring these guys? No. It's time to go. They can be somewhere, but not on a pedestal.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Do you want to share your thoughts for a minute? With the Real News Network. Okay. Do you want to step over here with me? Just
I wasn't going to initially, but yeah, I guess I can just take it.
Can you tell us your name and do you want to?
Yeah,
Were you here last night? Can you tell us your name?
I was here last night. My name's Angela. I was here last night. I was here 2 days ago when the new sculpture was put up.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts about the statue being taken down?
I think it's a boost. I think it helps Baltimore feel like we're proactive and we're not giving the alt-right a place to congregate. And I know it's an umbrella group, and I know it's a lot of people with bad ideas. So I think I'm really happy to see all kinds of different neighbors and activists come out for this. And the city needs some fresh starts, and the city needs other people to have their turn on the pedestal for a change. There's no reason to be sad because there's enough people who deserve respect. So there are enough people for new sculptures, new statues to be made, and changing of the guard. It happens everywhere. It should happen here too. It doesn't hurt. We saw really angry people here last night and this morning.
Well, this has been a rallying point for the KKK for years before. Before.
Right.
Just until a few years ago. They gather here every year on Robert E. Lee's birthday.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I posted some video of this, and a lot of people were posting fake, misleading, fake Antifa flyers on some posting of this that I did online earlier, and I was able to disavow them of their revisionism, because a lot of it is like a tethering revisionist campaign to use the word terrorism and anti-fascism together, which is ironic because anti-fascism is the opposite of fascism.
Yeah, and in Charlottesville, Antifa defended clergy when they were being attacked by the neo-Nazis.
And Antifa is also not a group with memberships or membership cards, and it's a group of anybody who is literally against fascism is Antifa. And so the revisionist campaign is to make them equally bad, like this fake alt-left that doesn't exist, and the alt-right, which does exist. So when you see people try to make this like fake rebranding revisionist campaign and you say, that's crap, no, sorry, it's not real, then it's satisfying to, people are just trying to communicate. So when people put out their signifiers that they're with the alt-right or that they are anti-fascism, other people can pick up on it and they can give it back. You know, I think the goal is to change people's minds. So the best people don't mind meeting people with opposing viewpoints.
Cool. Thank you so much.
So
appreciate it.
I'm so self-conscious.
You're great. I appreciate it. Again, the statue of Robert E. Lee in Wyman Park, right near Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, has been taken down. Activists had said they were going to take it down tonight, but the mayor came in the middle of darkness and pulled it down with the city. And the statue is right here. Excuse me, would you want to do a quick interview?
Huh?
Would you want to do a quick interview about your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
So I'm with the Real News Network. We're live streaming right now.
Okay.
Can you tell us your name and why you're here today?
Okay, my name is Andre Robinson.
And you're from Baltimore?
I'm from Baltimore, yes.
Okay, so this has been here for 70 or 80 years.
Yes.
It was taken down in the middle of the night.
Right.
Just a couple days after the violence in Charlottesville.
Right.
What are your thoughts about it? You seem to be out here. You said finally.
Well, I was here yesterday.
Okay.
I was here last night.
Okay.
And we had a great discussion last night about where this country is as far as race and, you know, what happened in Virginia over the weekend. And it just brings, somebody asked a question yesterday, why now?
Yeah.
And the answer was because it's bringing stuff. It's like a submarine under the surface.
Yeah.
And now it comes to the surface. You have to deal with it. If it's bubbling down under the surface, it's not. We don't know what's going on. But now it comes to the surface. Now our children are seeing what our grandparents see. Yeah. So the whole point now is the time to take this thing down, so it doesn't get to repeat history all over again. Yeah. And that's why I'm here to support taking down of it.
Yesterday, on Tuesday, Donald Trump defended Confederate
statues.
He defended the people that rallied in Charlottesville. And his campaign has empowered white nationalists and neo-Nazis nationwide.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
I'm outraged about it.
Yeah.
I'm outraged because I'm on CNN every day and I'm getting the updates of the news, and it really is discouraging and disheartening to know that the president is picking a side, and the wrong side. And the president should be somebody who bring the country together, not being on either side of a racial thing, but at least try to bring the whole country together. And in the wake of what happened in Virginia, he didn't even address the family in that sense of remorse and saddened by what happened. He was more supportive of what happened to the Nazi, the white supremacists, whatever. That's where his mindset was. Yeah. And the funny thing about it is his daughter is supposed to be Jewish. His son-in-law is Jewish. His grandkids are Jewish. So, it goes to show, is he on an island by himself? I mean, not even his family. So, it's really scary moment for the United States right now.
So this was built in an era of segregation, of discrimination, open discrimination, in federal law and local law, and we're still feeling those vestiges today in Baltimore. Baltimore remains deeply segregated. If you're African American, your life expectancy in some neighborhoods is 20 years less than white. So do you think after taking this down, the city can start moving forward and addressing not just what the statues symbolize, but the actual remnants of white supremacy today?
What we had yesterday, the discussions we had, and very progressive conversations we had yesterday evening here, because even the police was involved and different race and different citizens. And the whole thing about it is trying to get a conversation going. Now, this is not the end of it. This should be the beginning of a conversation towards making it better for the race relationship in Baltimore City and Baltimore County. So that's where we are today. And I hope this is a starting point to a good thing.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Can you spell your name? I didn't.
A-N.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I knew that so real quick, are we ready to go?
I'm looking at you or the camera?
You look at me and again.
So as you can see, there's a lot of cameras, crews here. We're getting some more shots of where the Lee statue used to be. So this said, the needle of the pole Jackson advanced to the execution of my purpose. So this monument was clearly celebrating Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson. And this is the statue that activists put up. You can see it says, "Remember Charlottesville." How does this help us? Let me know if you have any questions for people gathered here. I'm going to try to do some more interviews with the folks gathered. Again, the mayor took this down in the middle of the night. She was facing an ultimatum from activist groups who had said they were taking it down Wednesday night. So tonight, they were going to take it down themselves if it was still up. You can see some of the Keith Davis Jr. That's Keith Davis Jr. was an African-American man in Baltimore that was shot by police and remains in prison to this day. We're going to try to do one more interview in just a minute. So I am not clear on where the statue is going to end up. I did read that the city, and I've heard from witnesses, the city took it down very carefully.
The details of all that.
Hey, when you're done, you want to do a quick interview? Thanks.
So, Evan, you want to take your IP off?
I'm not sure where they're taking them to, but witnesses told us that the city was really careful when they were taking it down. They took it down very carefully. You can see, so that's Baltimore Museum of Art straight ahead. Johns Hopkins University is right around the corner. This is Wyman Park, the Dell. So this is right in the heart of Baltimore. And it's one of four statues, at least four statues of Confederate generals that exist in Baltimore today.
Colors on the back are kind of the European, South American color scheme.
the article from Confederate itself, carrying a baby both on her back, having signed her, and let's get those thoughts on that. Some of our ideas of racing Europe and like this is
And again, let me know if you have any more questions. If you can tell me right now, I'm going to do one more interview with an activist that was involved in protesting here. I can ask them in just a minute. And yesterday at The Real News, you can go on our Facebook page or our website, we did an interview or response to Trump's press conference where he defended white supremacists, defended white nationalists, he defended those protesting in Charlottesville. He defended, or he also said that both sides were blamed for the violence.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if people want to come to Baltimore and mix it up, then that's on them.
Hey, what's going on?
Hey, what's up, Jason?
Quick interview?
Yeah, sure.
All right, can you introduce yourself?
Sure.
And tell us why, and tell us what you've been doing here.
So my name's Owen Silverman Andrews. And I'm one of many Baltimore grassroots organizers, including Doc Cheatham, Baltimore Black, Pablo Macchioli, folks from Tubman House who've been working on this issue.
And so this has been a flashpoint for years. There's been KKK protests for years and counter protests, and this became a flashpoint again. This over the weekend, people in Baltimore gathered here. Thousands gathered here on Sunday. They marched through the streets, demanding that this and other vestiges of white supremacy be removed. There was an ultimatum: take it down by tonight, by Wednesday, or it's coming down. Like, activists are taking it down. And so in the middle of the night, the city came in. Catherine Pugh came in. She had originally said it's going to take time. We need to consult with different agencies, but she took it down in the middle of the night. It seems like to avoid a confrontation. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure, I think it's really exciting, and it's the culmination of intense, years-long grassroots organizing and pressure that was a flashpoint, like you said, when white supremacist violence occurred in Charleston and then again in Charlottesville, but also in response to ongoing white supremacist violence here in Baltimore City. And so, you know, Frederick Douglass said, power yields nothing without demand, right? And that's exactly what happened here. It was, oh, this is too expensive, this will take too long, and ultimately when push comes to shove, the government will respond when we force the government to respond and not before.
And so defenders, even liberal defenders I've talked to, say this is history, we can't remove history, it needs to be preserved, we shouldn't take them down. How do you respond to those arguments?
Sure, this is not, the Lee Jackson Monument is not history, it's a false narrative, it's the lost cause mythology. It was put up in the 1940s not to honor fallen Confederate veterans like some of the older monuments supposedly were alluding to, but it was put up as a triumphant symbol of rising white supremacy and resurgent white power. And so leaving the Lee Jackson statue in place is the erasure of history, not the removal of it. And if you look at the way Nazi Germany, for example, has dealt with their past, they do not leave statues of Hitler and Eichmann in place. They remove them and put up plaques and said Jewish families lived here. And that's the way to remember history, not to leave up triumphant statues of genocidal maniacs.
Yeah, and you didn't hear those same people defending the statues of Saddam in Iraq.
Exactly. It's a false logic, and it's a defense mechanism of people who can't grapple with either their own privilege or internalized white supremacy. And so we can remember history without celebrating slavery and genocide and rape.
And so is the work now done, now this is down?
Columbus is next. There are 2 Columbus statues in Baltimore, one in Druid Hill Park and the other in Little Italy. And if those don't come down based on government action from the city, then they'll come down based on grassroots action. So those are the next 2. Columbus in Druid Hill and Columbus in Little Italy. Columbus started the transatlantic slave trade. He brought syphilis to the hemisphere. He was a rapist who took indigenous women to Europe and had sex with them against their will. And so we're planning a funeral for Columbus to lay him to rest and to move on to the next chapter, so we can celebrate people like Thurgood Marshall and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, and hold up those leaders who struggled against that type of oppression instead of honoring those who initiated it.
And so yesterday, Trump defended the protesters in Charlottesville. He said that they weren't all neo-Nazis, they weren't all white supremacists, and he also asked the question: if you're taking down statues of Lee and of Jackson, what about Thomas Jefferson? What about George Washington?
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson was a rapist and a slaver. He was a fine writer, and some of his writing should be remembered. But his rape and enslavement of African folks and women should not be celebrated.
Which it is. I mean, because Sally Hemings is celebrated as his daughter, not the victim of rape, even to today, even this year.
Very much so, yeah. And the other night on First Edition local radio show, one of Sean Yo's guests said that once we start talking about Confederate monuments, we open a Pandora's box. And there are many, many street names, school names, other monuments that speak to some of the same issues of oppression. But she said at the bottom of Pandora's box, the myth goes, is hope. And so yes, we're opening the Pandora's box here. This is the first shoe to fall, but the next one is going to be soon after it, and hopefully we can have a real conversation about what equity and empowerment of Black artists looks like in our city.
All right, thank you so much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. So I'm Jess Lenore with The Real News. For anyone that missed it, right behind me, until a few hours ago, stood a statue of Robert E. Lee and Stonewall Jackson, and on their horses, and it was taken down in the middle of the night by Mayor Catherine Pugh of Baltimore. We are in Wyman Park. It's sort of in the center of Baltimore. We're right near Johns Hopkins, the Baltimore Museum of the Art. This has been a flashpoint for years. Activists had threatened to take this down tonight. If the city didn't take it down, the city had agreed to take it down, but said they needed more time. But faced by this pressure, the city came in the middle of the night and took it down. We're going to keep following the story. We covered Trump's press conference yesterday. We had our reporters Aaron Mate and Easy Jackson in Charlottesville this weekend. So go to therealnews.com, go to our Facebook page for all of our coverage, our ongoing coverage. Tonight we're interviewing Gerald Horne again, historian, to get his response to Trump's comments. And we're going to keep bringing you other stories as well. Stay tuned, and thank you so much for watching.